I never realized how much my daily habits were contributing to my anxiety. It was just the stressful events in my life. It was the way I was living day to day, the constant rush, the pressure to get everything done, the way my mornings felt like a race to catch up. It started as small things, tightness in my chest, racing thoughts, and being constantly on edge. It wasn't until my anxiety took over that I realized I was living in a constant state of reaction, and I wasn't taking control. I was constantly reacting to everything around me, but I wasn't choosing how to respond. Something had to change. So, I made 3 small changes, and those changes changed everything. It wasn't a dramatic breakdown. It wasn't a moment where everything crashed down. But it was a moment when I realized I couldn't keep going like this. I remember waking up one morning, overwhelmed before my feet even touched the floor. The panic was building, the chest-tightening feeling was there, and I just felt like I couldn't breathe. It wasn't the big things that had me stressed. It was the constant cycle of reacting to emails, to work, to social obligations. I was constantly in motion, constantly managing what was around me, without ever asking, what do I need? So, I made a decision. I was going to break the cycle, not in one giant leap, but in small, daily choices that could give me back some peace. I started with 3 simple habits, ones that I could control, ones that didn't require perfection, just consistency. And little by little, those habits began to shift everything. I realized the key wasn't trying to eliminate anxiety. The key was creating space for calm, for presence, a space where anxiety didn't control me. Here's how I started. 1. Morning mindfulness. The first habit I adopted was mindfulness in the morning. Before I even touched my phone, I made a commitment to spend 10 minutes in silence. I'd wake up, lie in bed, and simply focus on my breathing. I wasn't trying to clear my mind. I just wanted to notice what I was feeling without judgment. If I was feeling anxious, I acknowledged it. If I felt calm, I welcomed it. It wasn't about stopping thoughts. It was about accepting them, letting them come and go. This practice helped me realize that I didn't have to start my day already on edge. It gave me space to center myself before I was bombarded with demands. 2. Journaling for clarity. Next, I added journaling. Every morning, I'd spend 5 to 10 minutes writing down my thoughts. I'd list everything on my mind, what I was stressed about, what I was grateful for, what I wanted to focus on that day. Writing down my worries didn't make them go away, but it helped me see them clearly. It gave me perspective and allowed me to manage my emotions instead of letting them build up inside me. 3. Physical movement. Exercise has always been a challenge for me, especially when I felt anxious. But I made a commitment to start small. I began with simple stretches and walks, just moving my body for 10 to 15 minutes every morning. It wasn't about intense workouts or burning calories. It was about moving. It helped me release the physical tension I was holding in my body, which in turn helped release the mental tension. The more I moved, the more I felt like my body was working with me instead of against me. I felt my energy shift from stagnant to alive, from chaotic to controlled. 4. Limiting overstimulation. One of the biggest shifts I made was limiting screen time, especially in the morning. I stopped checking my phone as soon as I woke up. Instead, I used that time to focus on myself before the outside world took over. No emails, no social media, no news, just me, my thoughts, and the quiet. I gave myself that space to start the day on my own terms. 5. Consistency over perfection. What I realized through all of this was that consistency was more important than perfection. There were mornings when I didn't feel like journaling, or I couldn't focus on my breath, but I still showed up. I did something, even if it was small, and that was enough. These habits didn't take away my anxiety, but they gave me tools to manage it. I wasn't just reacting to my anxiety anymore. I was choosing how to respond, and that shift from reaction to choice made all the difference. As I look back on these daily habits, it's clear that a few things made the most significant difference. These were the changes that really helped me shift my relationship with anxiety. 1. Breathwork. My foundation, the most transformative habit for me, was breathing. When panic would hit, it felt like everything would spiral out of control. But learning how to breathe deeply, slowly, was the single most effective tool. I didn't need to fight anxiety. I needed to breathe through it. The more I practiced box breathing, the more I realized I had the power to pause. I could control my breath, and in doing so, I could create a pause in the panic. This simple tool became my foundation. It's something I still rely on whenever anxiety starts to creep in. 2. Journaling for self-reflection. Journaling became my safe space. I wasn't writing to fix anything. I was writing to understand it. Every time I felt anxious, I wrote down my thoughts, what triggered me, what I was afraid of, and what I could do about it. This wasn't a magical cure, but it helped me see my thoughts from a distance, instead of getting consumed by them. By writing my worries down, I gave myself permission to release them. It allowed me to organize my thoughts and reflect on what I needed to let go of. 3. Movement to release tension. ILL. Be honest. Moving my body was the last thing I wanted to do on a bad anxiety day. But when I started small, it was transformative. I didn't push myself to go to the gym or do intense workouts. I started with gentle walks, simple stretches, and even yoga. Just moving for a few minutes helped release the physical tension that was feeding my anxiety. It grounded me, it gave me energy, and it reminded me that my body and mind were connected. When my body was calm, my mind could follow. These 3 habits weren't revolutionary on their own, but when I combined them, breathing, journaling, and moving, they became my daily toolkit. I wasn't eliminating my anxiety, but I was learning how to live with it in a way that didn't take over my life. Looking back, I can honestly say that I'm not completely anxiety-free, but I'm no longer a slave to it. It doesn't control my everyday or my thoughts, and that shift from being controlled by anxiety to managing it. My mornings still aren't perfect. There are days when I wake up with that familiar tightness in my chest, and the thoughts start spinning. But I've learned how to respond. I don't ignore it. I don't try to push through. I use my tools. I breathe. I journal. I move. I've learned to accept that anxiety is part of my life, but it doesn't have to run the show. I've learned to be gentle with myself, even on days when anxiety feels louder than usual. I've learned that progress isn't linear, and it's okay to have setbacks. What matters is that I now have a routine, a foundation of habits that helps me get through the hard days and feel more in control. To you, watching this and struggling with your own anxiety, I want to say, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers right now. Start with small, simple steps. Start with breathing, with moving, with journaling, and know that you are not alone. Healing isn't about eliminating anxiety. It's about learning how to live with it. in a way that doesn't stop you from living your life. You can do this, one step at a time. If you re-still in the thick of it, feeling like anxiety is taking over your days, your mornings, your thoughts, I want you to hear this. You're not broken. You're not a failure. You're simply living with something hard. And it's okay to acknowledge that. Healing is not a race. It's not about never feeling anxious again. It's about learning how to respond to anxiety with compassion instead of fear. Every small step you take matters. Whether it's breathing deeply for 5 seconds or journaling just one line, even when it feels like nothing is changing, you are healing. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep trying, showing up for yourself, and believing that peace is possible, even in small doses. So, if you're struggling today, remember, you're doing better than you think. And there is hope. One small step, one deep breath at a time. If this video brought you some comfort or encouragement, please consider giving it a like. It might help someone else who is quietly struggling with anxiety, just like you. If you know someone who needs to hear this message, share it with them. You never know when a small, real story might help them feel a little less alone. And if you want more stories about healing, anxiety management, and finding peace, please subscribe. The next video could be the one that helps you move through the tough moments. Healing isn't a perfect journey, but it's real, and I'm here to share it with you.